Hello everyone, this is JPL, and this is, as the title suggests, the Story of Korell. What this means is I'm going to be going over the past and talking about how I met Korell, sometimes we had together, and then the final event. This is, the 2-year anniversary of the passing, so I figured it'd be good to just have something for me to recollect memories and stuff, because all my friends, they're all in different places now, across the countries, so I'm here by myself. I don't really have anyone to just, chill out with. So I figured just make this video for me. Not really for any of you guys. If you guys are interested in knowing the story, good for you. But the story starts with brony. With me finding out what a brony is. I don't remember when that was. I'm pretty sure I was in middle school then. I was in the States. It was 2012, around the time where bronies were like becoming a big thing, and I think what caught my attention the first time for the word brony was probably when the 2012 BronyCon was happening. Probably around that time, maybe. I'm not entirely sure. I don't entirely remember if there was a thing, but if there was, that's probably what it was. But yeah, somehow I learned about bronies, went down to Ecuador, and went to school. First day of school, I don't remember. I don't think there's really much interaction with Korell, but at some point, the very first thing that I learned about him was, oh, I'm a brony. I watched My Little Pony, and that was his defining characteristic for me, was that he loved ponies. Another thing that he did was at that time he would make cupcakes, 12 cupcakes for anyone on their birthday, and they look good. They look good. Indeed. I would want one, but he stopped doing it a month before my birthday, so I never got the cupcakes, which was sad because I would have loved to try them. Another big thing for him was that he loved duct tape. He really did. Duct tape was the greatest thing to him besides ponies, which was true. We had a class with him. It's called GRC. It was for people who had trouble doing their work or struggling to understand concepts. It's kind of like a guidance resource, where they would help you out with stuff like that. And he and I, we would always talk a lot. We'd always banter about stuff. I know one thing that he enjoyed was duct tape. And so he was just browsing through oh, hey, you can make a suit out of duct tape or a dress out of duct tape. Duct tape can be used for anything. He was always about stuff like that. Another thing that we had argument during that year was about coffee not being, a very good source of waking you up. He said, an apple, you can wake up better with an apple than you can with a coffee. I still don't believe crap like that. It's probably true, but I still prefer my coffee. I prefer the taste of coffee. He doesn't really like coffee that much. He drinks hot chocolate in the morning. So yeah, that was fun. During the first year like that, it was an English class that we had together. I think that was the one other class I had with him, that he would always like to just open the drawers of my teacher's desk and rearrange it. And my teacher, she was fine with that, She knew Trey enough that she would trust him, to ravage through her desk and just organized everything. He was weird like that. He was fun. I would always say, hey, stop cleaning up the desk. It's not your desk. And you just go about and do it. And in the desk there was this hammer I would always like pull it out and just hold on to it, and he would not let anyone come and get the hammer. Like me, I like the hammer. You know, I would always like to hold the hammer, but no, he he would always, you know, like, back off. I got a hammer. You know, just. And if you try to like to grab his arm, if you try to touch him at all, he will grab your arm and twist it, and so that you like wouldn't, you know, touch him. It hurt. It really did hurt, but you know, he was very defensive about people touching him. He got a haircut. You know, he used to like show his hair all the time, but he got a haircut that then for the next year and a half, maybe, he started just wearing this green beanie, and he wouldn't let anyone touch his head, because if they try to take that thing off again, he would wrap your arm around and make you hurt. Because he didn't like his haircut, and he tried to hide it for the longest time. I don't try to remember what else we had that first year. There's nothing much. On to the next year. That would be our freshman year of high school, and there I had a lot more classes with him. I think I had pretty much all of my classes I had with him. You know, and the first class of the day was math, which we both hated. So we both sat together. He wore his hat. We were the two people who wore hats. The teacher was very strict about guys can't wear hats. And as soon as we like step a foot in the door, he would be yelling at us. They're like, "Hey, take off your hats." And we would always, you know, debate with him. It was like, "Hey, please, can we just get to our desks, put our stuff down, and then take off our hats? Because we can't do too many things at once because we're carrying all these books." And so yeah, we both had troubles, and that was probably the only time where I got to see him without his hat during that year, because he was very particular about what his hat. And at that time, he was switching between like the green and just one gray one, because it was a nice hat. And the second thing we had was an English class. There I learned like he had an eye fetish. You know, he likes eyes, and I don't exactly remember why. He likes dragons. I got to know him a lot more that second year because of that. What else? We continued with our GRC classes. Again, in that class it was just the two of us, and so we just argued the entire time. We argued. We'd always argue about like the weirdest things. Like one particular argument I don't remember entirely sure was whether our dolphins had gills or not. And me, I always knew that I was wrong, because then I realized with his arguments that, oh, I made a mistake, but I still stuck with my arguments. You know, I was stubborn like that. And I knew way back when that I was stubborn as heck. So, the teacher, she got annoyed a lot, because we'd argue every day. It got to the point where I was kind of like, oh no, GRC, I don't want to argue with him today. He, on the other hand, I learned this a few years later by his parents, that he actually really loved our arguments. You know, that was one of the highlights of his days. You know, just coming to our class and then just arguing a lot about just random stuff. It was great. One constant thing that kept coming up was me watching My Little Pony. It would constantly be like, "Hey, John, just watch My Little Pony, okay?" And I'd be like, "No," and he's like, "No, I don't want to watch it. It's just a show for little girls." I'm like, is there anything wrong with that? Like, is there one like major reason why you shouldn't watch My Little Pony? And that's his basic argument. It's like, no, I don't want to. It's like, why shouldn't you? And that's his argument. And me, you know, again, being stubborn, I would constantly be saying, I will not watch My Little Pony until I have children, and I'll watch it with them. You know, that was my way of compromising. He still bagged at me, but, you know, I just never gave in. Mancala. He taught me how to play Mancala. It's a great game, great sport. Really enjoyed it. Loved playing with him. Another thing in that class that would distract him was there was this thing, that oil in it, and if you like to turn the thing, the bubbles, like flow up, and and yeah, sound like that, and you keep turning it, and he was mesmerized by that thing. He left for the summer early that year because he wanted to go to summer camp. And for me, what I did is I filmed that thing going up, and I sent it to him just so he can have that thing during the summer. And it was great. It was fun. Another thing was that he struggled in Bible class, memorizing verses, and so me, I would always be his tutor for that class, just like, this is the verse, Lord, let's go through the segments. Because me, I learned it instantly, just like the class before, spent a few minutes on it, memorized it, then during the actual Bible class, the teacher was like, okay, I'll give you 5-10 minutes to study through this, and so yeah, we went through the verses, got him to memorize them, and that's how he survived that class, was by me teaching him about that. I got into Minecraft that year, and so that year, me, Korell, and Toa, we made like this Romeo and Juliet scene out of Minecraft, and it was great. We spent like hours on it. Like, we were totally into this thing, and it was great. We just, like, one of those times where we chilled out. He ate pizza. Actually, he didn't eat lunch at all. The girls were constantly bugging him, like, Trey, you gotta keep eating pizza, or you gotta eat something. And they'll give him a part of their lunches so that he would eat something, because he's like, oh, I don't have any money. Oh well, I'm not eating. You're like, Trey, you're skinny as heck. Eat this sandwich. If he did have money, he would eat pizza, because pizza was another thing that he and Toa eat all the time. Oh yes, we had Spanish that year. Spanish. We were both the two highest students in Spanish. I got an award for being the top students of the year for Spanish, and this award was originally supposed to go to him, but he went to summer camp early, and so they couldn't give it to him because he wasn't going to be there to receive it. So they gave it to me instead, whatever that was. And that class, Spanish 1, was a really good class because it was the easiest Spanish ever. And half the time, we didn't even have class because most of the class didn't show up. We were a class of 5 people. 3 of them were prone to not showing up, so that was fun. During one class in math, he was always trying to bake stuff, trying to bake new things. One class he came in with a loaf of bread. It's like, hey John, I made this bread. Try it out. And I tried out the bread. It was good. Really good bread. Needed more bubbles, but it was good bread. During the summer, whatever it is I did, I don't exactly remember what it was I did during that summer, but it was something. But one thing I do remember in particular was that I saw Death Battle, and in that Death Battle with one of them was a Rainbow Dash character from My Little Pony vs. Starscream, that whole thing, and watched it, and that was pretty much the first time I saw ponies. Actually, the very first time was the trailer for Equestria Girls, but that was a big no-no when I saw that. I sent the video to him, and the next time I saw him was during registration for the next year, where everyone had to line up, get their picture taken, sign a few paperwork, saying do you want bus system, do you want the food system, stuff like that, which was a big mess. But I met up with him and then we talked about it. I was like, hey, I sent you the video. He was like, yeah, it was great, I loved it, man. And so yeah, and then that year, I think we did have classes together a lot of times. I know that we did the first class we had the day was Spanish, very early in the morning. It was like we were the only two high schoolers in that class, and the rest was a bunch of middle schoolers, which got a bit annoying. It was really annoying because we don't like those kids. And then Bible, of course, I would obviously be teaching him everything. Like right before class, I would memorize the thing, and during class, teacher's like, "All right, I gave you 5-10 minutes to go over it," and he never memorized his verses. So I like, here's my paper. Here are the verses. Like remember such and such and such. Repeat it back to me. And again, that's how he got through that class. Because if he didn't do that, then he wouldn't have like the passable grade that he did have. So really, I was the biggest help for him during the Bible class. It was great. We sat next to each other. We talked. We had an English class together, which sometimes I sat with him, sometimes I didn't. During that English class, I made friends with FlameWolf, but I haven't gone to that point yet. We had a biology class. I sat in the middle back, right next to like jars of snakes, and one thing that Trey was like really scared of was like snakes or stuff resembling that. So he sat in the very front. There was nothing resembling that. He had his friends go through his textbooks and like put in sticky notes over stuff that had snakes, or they would just draw it out with pencil. And so he was great. One thing about Trey was like he was always there for his friends. Mostly for the girls in his friend groups. That's where I know him the most. I know that one girl, like 12 at night, 1 in the morning, messaged Trey like, I need a hug. Next thing you know is like he shows up at her door, is like, here, you go ask for a hug. And like he was great like that. He's the kind of person that everyone would want to know. And I think the next point of order, of course, we did not have our GRC class. I was the only one who was in that class, and at that point, I didn't really need a class. I only used that class to do my math homework. And then once I was done with math, it was just a waste of time for me. I just sit there and talk with students. And then I finally got into ponies. I would talk to him. It's like, hey, I've been watching this series. This fan series called Mentally Advanced series, and like Friendship is Witchcraft. And he's like, oh, a friend told me I have to watch Friendship is Witchcraft, and I said, oh, you probably should. And he's like, nah, I just stick to the normal show. Some time went on, he's like, oh, you should watch the show. And then I finally watched the show. If you guys watched like any other video where I talked about that, then you'll get the whole story. But I watched the show. And like during that time, I would message him, just saying like, "Oh, I have this episode done, or I have this season done." And he would like, "Yeah, like keep going. Like this is only the introduction. Just cool. Like yeah, we can do this." And like when I got home, I would discuss it with him, and like every time I would come in and say, "Hey, I got this episode done," he'd be like, "Yes." He was great. He was the best. At what point? Dude, I forgot the one thing during the summer was that we started playing Minecraft together. We got on the server and we started like building a house. It was like, hey, let's play and like let's build this house here. And so he started the whole thing. He started like an elevator and like a basement section of the house. And then, he had to go after a couple hours. I completed the entire thing. We both, worked on this thing. But I mostly did all the work. He'd come back with, like, this whole ginormous ordeal thing. They'd be like, what have you been doing? Because I put hours and hours into that thing. I wish I can play Minecraft the way I did back then, but it's just difficult. I can't really play, by myself. Because back then I played with expectancy, with Trey being there. I can show him all the stuff I had. Now it's just I could play alone, but the thing is I'm alone and I can't record with Minecraft because it's buggy. I need a better computer for that. And so Minecraft was one of those things that we both enjoyed together. That and My Little Pony, that was great. So on to My Little Pony. Like we would talk about it. I'd start drawing the ponies. I'd show them, and great inspiration. And then one big thing happened. He and the other friends was saying, "Hey, you should join the drama department. You should be in this play next semester, because we need more people." Is what he's saying. And so, because they're really short. A lot of their actors, they graduated, and a lot more were going to graduate. So they're like, "Hey, we need you." I joined in, and that was the best time of my life. I know during the rehearsal process, I started reading Fallout Equestria, and I remember this very, very nicely because I would read during the rehearsals where I was not part of the scene. When we go through the entire thing, I do my scene, go backstage, go in a dark, quiet place that was in the audience, and read. And I would read. And I would read the fan fictions. I'd be like, "Hey, I read this fan fiction." And he's like, "No, I know about that. No, I don't want to read that." And, it was great. And, at some point in there, I was talking to him about reaction videos. And saying, you haven't seen all these fan works. You've been part of you've been part of the fandom since 2012, and you haven't seen all this fan work. And he's like, "No, I've not seen them." And so I talked him into saying, "Hey, you should join my channel. You can do reaction videos. We can do stuff together." And so we did. I sent him videos. We recorded them. We did the update video. I was like, "Hey, welcome to the channel." And, he would do reaction videos, and that's what we did. I would send him files. I'd download stuff. I'd put them in a folder, send it to him, and, give him a list, in order what you should react to. And, he didn't, react to them immediately. It took him a few weeks or a couple months, and then he would send me through Google Drive, folders of audios that he did reactions of, and so then I would edit them and upload them. And that's how he worked. He was a reactor who reacted to things in bulk and then sent them to me. Season 5 was airing at that time, and so me and him, we would watch the episode. Not together. I would send him the link to the episode and he'd watch it and I'd watch it. Then, when we got back to school, we would talk about the episode, stuff like that. Then, in English, we did, this project about furries, and we all dressed up, and we put tidbits of the show in there, and, it was just, jokes, not clips of the show. We put in, jokes as, "Oh, Discord did this." He's like, "Man, it's not as weird as Fluttershy," or something. And we just put in subtle jokes in there. It was great. And at some point I discovered that BronyCon would be happening in the summer, and it was going to be happening in Baltimore, somewhere that I lived fairly close at the time, whenever I went to the States. And so I talked to him, was like, "Hey, BronyCon's going on." He's like, "You know what? You should go. You really should go. I would love to go to BronyCon, and I live far away." And he's like, "But you have the opportunity to go, and I would say go." And I did. And so, yeah. And I knew that his birthday was happening during the summer at that time, and so I wanted to do something. So I drew me and FlameWolf. I talked with him. I made friends with him because he was drawing key marks on a whiteboard and saying like, "Hey, you want to show?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so we were kind of friends, and he was an artist. I helped him get back into drawing ponies. He's faded away from that now. And so we and I talked together. It's like, we should probably get something done for Trey. And like, we decided on a drawing. And so I drew Sugar Cube Corner with Pinkie Pie and Trey's OC, which was incomplete at the time. I'd said, hey, you should probably have an OC, you know. Everyone else, you know, they have a character that defines them in the fandom, and I could say, you can have yours. And so he had like an orange, it was kind of like Flash Sentry, but somewhat different. An Earth Pony with no key mark. And so I drew that, I drew the outline of everything, and I sent them all to FlameWolf, and he retraced them, he put in the color, and then, you know, we gave him the thing, and like said happy birthday, and he loved it. Like, you guys made this for me. It's like, oh, you guys are the best ever. And that was the first part of the gift. I went to BronyCon that year. Favorite year of BronyCon, to be honest. And, you know, and Andrea Libman, the character who voices Pinkie Pie, who was his favorite character, was there. And I got her to sign, you know, the picture that me and FlameWolf drew, you know, for him. And, like, when I came back, I went to a friend's house, but Trey was there, and I thought he was in the States. He was there, like, oh, you're here. And so, I was going through autographs that I got over BronyCon, and I sent him, I gave him the thing, like, here's this final thing. It's for you, happy birthday. But that was the happiest I ever saw him. When I gave him that. He was in tears, you know, he couldn't believe that I went through like a line. I paid money to do something like this, and he treasured the thing very much. Like, he loved it. And, you know, talking with his parents afterwards, they told me how, you know, this was a big deal to him. It was when I gave him that. You know, he would talk about it all the time. He would talk about all the effort that he put into it, and that he loved it. He got it framed. Before he didn't, he had it in a folder until, you know, he was at my house one time, and I had like stuff that were framed, and he asked me, "Hey, how do you get that framed? Where do you get the frame?" And I said, "Oh, there's this place around the corner or something." And I sent him to it, and he got that picture framed. I have the picture right here. There that year we had another summer, that same summer we had BronyCon. He and we both did this thing where he would send me clips of this knockoff pony stuff, and I'd send him more knockoffs that I found like at stores and Cracker Barrel and stuff like that. That year we were in dramas together. We did plays together. In the class we had like our Spanish class. The class that none of us liked. Of that year I don't entirely remember much. I remember I went to his house one time to go over the script. You know, I got to see all that. Bible class we had together, I know he wasn't a big fan of that class. Same as me. We'd argue with the teacher all the time. Because we knew that the teacher, just what he taught was incorrect. And he would always try to challenge things. Like, he wanted change to happen at the school. He went and talked to the principal, had a meeting with her, like things like in the rule books that should be changed, should be stricter, should be whatever. Nothing happened. We had this thing called the Harvest Festival, and he worked in the basement on the haunted house. I know that he wanted to do this great magnificent thing, but the class, he was like, no, we should like do all this jump scares and stuff. You know, he wanted psycho horror, you know, just the things that creep people out, like have this room be tilted or something. And everyone's like, no, throw blood at people. And so we were always in the minority, but everyone loved him. Me, I was like, I I was in the video game booth, but I never actually stayed at that booth. I would always dress up as something. This year I dressed up as like a clown, the mascot for that year. And so I'd go around as the mascot. Before, during preparation, he was sleeping downstairs on like this bed that we brought down there for like a thing that was going on. And they were sleeping on there, and me and FlameWolf, we took a picture with him sleeping back there. So during Thanksgiving, the season 5 finale of My Little Pony came out, and I watched it and I really enjoyed it. It was the 28th of November that happened. Another thing that happened that day was there was this some kind of Comic-Con exhibits going on at the mall. I went and saw that with my dad. 29th, that would have been the Sunday. Probably Thanksgiving Day, I don't remember that much. But yeah, I came back on the Monday, the 30th, I think. If I have the dates right, yes, I believe that's the case. So there's a table inside a courtyard that I always sit at every morning. And every morning, Fenrir Connell would come in and sit there as well. Some mornings, in fact most mornings, he would show up late, so he didn't really come today. So I figured, that's what the case was. He was just not showing up for that. Then first class of the day, I had English class. He was known recently to just not show up to class early. He would always be late. Some days he didn't show up. And this was one of those days that it seemed that he wasn't going to come to school. Next thing I knew, there was an announcement that we were going to have like a special chapel session. And I was always upset every time they do that because they're not really well organized. I'd be like, oh, the school was terrible, it's not organized, you do this at the last minute. I would always argue about that. But a teacher came to me, and I was with Matthew, and got up and a couple other people, said, oh yeah, we want you in my room for like a special thing. So we all gathered in the room, and we were all just talking. It's like, oh, what's gonna go on? And we're all joking. Oh, maybe we're gonna be arrested or something. Some of my friends, they knew something was up. They figured things out, as they were waiting in the room. Because they knew Fenrir Connell more. They knew them more personally. So the teacher comes in and starts talking, and he didn't really pull back on anything. He didn't just try to butter us up. Like, he was very clear, and he said, I wonder, you guys are probably wondering why you're here. I've just received an email that Trey might have just committed suicide. And that's where time froze for me. Time froze. I remembered just looking down at my desk, just looking at the wooden design, trying to focus my brain. My face, was heating up. My body was like trembling. I was holding back tears. I remember going on with my thoughts, and what my thoughts were saying. They focused on the one word that my teacher had said. He said might, and for me that was hope. Might. That doesn't mean that he actually died. That just means he could have. That maybe was an attempt that he was actually alive. And so my brain focused on the might, while the other part of my brain was saying they wouldn't have done this whole gathering if it wasn't true. You wouldn't have actually received an email if it wasn't true. So I looked around, and I could see my other friends. You know, they're not holding back. They're all letting it out. We were in that room for a few minutes. I don't remember how long it was. Time just was what it was. But they told us, you know, after some time that we moved into the big shop area where they were telling everyone the news, and everyone they had just told everyone the news, and everyone was in tears. People were asking me, you know, if I knew like anything about this. Is like if I knew that he was like this beforehand. They're like, did I see any signs beforehand? Personally, I never saw anything. You know, I only saw Trey for the great person that he was. I never saw him for the sad person that he was. So I didn't know anything. I said no. FlameWolf, he wasn't in the room with us. He was in the main chapel because he was a newer addition to our friend group that didn't always hang out with us, which is why the teachers like didn't think that he was that close to Trey. But FlameWolf was just devastated because as far as, you know, I could tell, FlameWolf was the last person to speak with Korell, Trey. Like he was sent. He was actually talking to him like the night, like the 29th. That night, you know, he like sent a song, you know, because they would send each other like music and say like, "What's your thoughts?" And the last thing that he heard was Trey saying, "This is a good song." And FlameWolf, he wanted, you know, just to reply back and talk, but he decided, no, I can talk with him after the day after. So he was just devastated, you know, he was just really felt responsible for, you know, not messaging back. You know, he felt like if he messaged back, he could have saved maybe a day for him to still be alive, which was all... Even just a single day would just be worth a million things. I remembered being in that room with like a lot of people. I remember not wanting to be there. I didn't want to be here. I was just burning up inside of me, just heat all over my face, and you could feel the heat. My friends were at the door, you know, they were hugging their parents, they're crying. And one thing I remember them saying was that, you know, 3rd grade is when they had known him. They'd known him since the 3rd grade. My father and my mother both asked me, you know, if I wanted to go home. And I did. I didn't want to stay. I mean, one thought was, you know, I probably should stay and, like, finish classes. You know, got a homework to do. But, you know, they assured me, oh, they're not going to actually do any classes now that this happened, and I didn't. I decided, like, okay, let's just go home. So my dad walked me home, and I was home, and I just sat at my desk, you know, just not knowing, you know, just thinking about the next thing. The first thoughts were coming to my mind, I have to message my friends, I have to message them. And so I've been messaging an email, like, my friends who were over in different countries, messaging them, you know, saying, we need to talk, you know, you need to call me or something. Like, most of them, they heard the news. Others, they didn't. They saw, like, a whole commotion going on Facebook about people, you know, putting on the post, and they were just messaging me like, what's going on? So I talked with them, and then another thing that was also going in my mind was that, you know, Korell, he and I were both, you know, reacting on the YouTube channel. He was reacting most, and my thought was, oh, I need to inform the subscribers, you know, about the loss, and I was kind of thinking, it'd just probably be insensitive of me to just do this right away, but another part was, I think that the people, they do deserve to hear about this as soon as possible. And so my dad, he was asking questions, like, can I get you anything like that? And I asked him to go get me some ice cream, because that's what I needed. I needed ice cream. So my dad went to go get ice cream. And I started recording the camera for the update video where I talked about the loss of Korell. And in that video, I cried for the first time. My tears came down. I started shedding my tears for the first time, I remember just being hopeless, just not knowing, what is gonna be. Just very confused about everything. Just wondering, wait, what happens after this? What do I do next? And after I made that video, I uploaded it, and that was the official confirmation. My dad came back with the ice cream, and I ate the ice cream, and one thing that was going on in my mind is I should probably watch an episode of My Little Pony, just to calm me down. I needed something to calm me down. So I ate the ice cream while watching an episode of My Little Pony, and I think I was watching the finale episode of My Little Pony. I was rewatching that episode. I woke up the next morning not knowing what to do today. Not knowing whether or not I should just go to school or just stay home. And my thoughts were, I don't want to stay home. I felt like I needed to just do something. Because if I stayed home, I wasn't going to be doing anything. There was nothing for me to do at home. So I decided to go to school and just try to work. So I go to school, and I sit in my usual space, and to my surprise, all my other friends, they had the same thought, to come to school, and we all sat in our table, and we were quiet. We didn't say anything. It was just silence, and it was cold. The bell rang, and everyone else, they went to class. Just so you know, no one had class for a week. The teachers, they just simply talked students through the experience in their classes during the week. But when the bell rang, we just sat there in that table. We were saying to each other, we should probably go to class. We agreed, yeah, we probably should. But we didn't move. We sat there for a good 5 minutes. Just quietly, just looking out, thinking. When one of the head of the offices came to us and said, we've prepared this special place for you to come in one of the offices, and one of the teachers is going to get some bread and some coffee or something. So we all went to the room. In that room, we spent hours and hours just talking about our stories that we spent with Trey. He and my arguments, the duct tape that he loved, adventures that we spent with him. And time went by just really quickly after that. We were talking, we just in a big circle, with a large group, about 10, 20 people, sharing stories and just talking about the time we spent with Trey. We didn't go to class at all the next week. We just spent our entire school day in that room, just talking throughout the whole thing. It was a place for us just to be together and to talk. And I remember just that being just the place that the most love was just shared. I loved my experiences in that room as we were talking. It was great. It was very healing. And the healing is just something that we should all just grab onto. And that's just something that people need. FlameWolf in that room, he was just the saddest person. Because for him, this wasn't the first time he lost like a friend. And if my numbers were correct, it's not even the third or fourth time. He's lost a lot of friends. And like for him, it was just like another failure, and that he lost another friend. One of our friends, invited all of us, pretty much everyone in the school, to come to their house for a campfire, where we just sit around a campfire, we just sing and have fun. Toa flew down from where he was. Other people, they just came down from where they were for a memorial service that we had. They shared some words in that. We all went to Trey's parents' house a couple days later, shared stories with them, just talked with them. For me, it was just very weird just being in the house where he was and where the event happened. I don't know what happened. I don't really know what exactly happened. All I know is that there was a big decision that was made, and the wrong one was made. The saddest part about this wasn't that I lost my friend, wasn't that it was suicide. The thing that I remember just being the hardest thing for me was that I don't remember the last time I saw him. I don't remember, the last conversation I had with him. Because I didn't think this would have been the last time I would have spoke to him. It was just another day with him. I never thought of anything, so I wish I did. The hardest time, from this, like, after the shock had run away, after we had our discussions, and after we went back to class, the hardest thing was just going on. A few months later, the pain got worse and worse. I drew a semicolon every day, the day after it happened. It was like a symbol for us, how the writer is, you put a semicolon, to just halfway through the sentence. You could end a sentence with a semicolon, but you choose to continue on with the next part of that sentence. And so I drew it with a Sharpie every day. Some people, they got it tattooed onto their arms, but me, every day, I made it consistent where I would draw a semicolon on my arm. And I did that for a full year, and I made the 1 year gone anniversary video. Right now, this is my 2-year anniversary. So, at this point, every time I see or hear a semicolon, I feel a bit of emotion. Even the word Trey is just the hardest thing for me, because for me, there is no other Trey in this world. There is only one. He was my friend, and I loved him very much. And I have to wait a very long time to see him again. This has been my story of retelling, the life and events with Korell. I was thinking maybe I could do this once a year, retell, see how my memories come back, see how the stories change, see if I grow as a person through that time, and see how life grows around me. And I thank you all for joining me in this experience. I was glad that I was able to just recollect as much as I could for this experience. I was worried that I would have forgotten too much. And so yeah, thank you guys for joining me, and I suppose I can just say bye. Bye.